What's up, everybody? We're back. It's Bluebird on your shoulder once again. Just the two Joshes this week.
Yep, yep.
Our other partner has a family emergency he is dealing with, so hope everything is okay there, my friend. And we're gonna get cracking to it, man. It's been a real busy week in Trump land.
Yeah, yep.
Epstein files are going to be voted on, we believe, next Wednesday. And that's because the shutdown is finally over. Yay, thank you. And fingers crossed that it doesn't screw you. Um, there, I believe, are still some things in that they are hammering out. And it's not a balanced budget like they make it seem. It is a 90-day extension. So we may be in this ugly situation again after the holidays. Um, they finally swore in the representative who won the special election in Arizona after 7 weeks of being sidelined because of the shutdown and what I think is part of a coup to try to delay the Epstein files being released to the House Oversight Committee by Speaker Johnson because he knew he would have to swear her in. And he knew that she would be the 218th signature on that petition to bring that to light for voting. With that being said, I'm bringing my attention to my screen name of The Math Always Maths. And I really, really, really feel like after some conversations I've had with some people this week that they are either delusional or just don't want to admit that they have been wrong this whole time because 2 + 2 always equals 4. With or without proof, you literally have to be a bona fide moron to not realize that when they find private emails or personal emails from the estate, from Epstein himself speaking to Giselle Maxwell about Trump and an author basically insinuating, in conversation, Wolf was the last name, I believe her name was,
Wolf, yep.
that they were basically saying, you could basically extort Trump for him not speaking about it because he is a political power and various other things. And then there was another email talking about Trump spent hours with, of course, they redacted the victim's name for victim security, that he spent hours with that victim alone at Epstein's house. I'm sorry, but like I said, 2 + 2 = 4. And for me, I guess I just have maybe enough common sense to fault, maybe. Who knows? But that says you did something, buddy.
Yeah, and we know that Epstein had cameras all over his house, so that means that there's likely video of whatever happened somewhere.
Yep. And there's alleged pictures of half naked girls sitting on his lap and, just all the kind of creepy things that he says. And Russia, there's supposed to be these other, like the P video and that Epstein sold dirt on Trump to the Russians, supposedly.
Well,
Uh,
some of the emails that came out kind of imply that too.
yeah, right, right. So yeah, like we discussed before we came on, I don't really care if any Democrat is in it, whoever's in it, and is named doing wrongdoing or is found to be doing wrongdoing, they need to rot. I don't
Yep.
care what side of the aisle you're on, what position you're in. That this is not a political. war Democratic hoax, as he likes to imply, there's probably a legit reason why you feel attacked, sir. Because, there's probably a real reason why, hey, here's another sign of the math always maths is you don't call the people in the White House into an emergency meeting in the situation room for that much privacy to have as soon as some of these, stories were broke about what's in the Epstein files that have been released so far from the estate. There's a reason why you're preparing for damage control is because and that's because because Pam Bondi, who was the attorney general in Florida during Epstein's prosecution, notified you last May that your name was all up in them reports.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why she has the job that she does now.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
She said,
and
I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine.
The thing that really, really, got me was the alluding to the Russia involvement. The amount of mathing going on there is a lot bigger than what most people are willing um to acknowledge. All of the moves that are being made right now, with posturing against any country that is allied with Russia, that could easily be pressure that Trump is putting on, to have some leverage in negotiation for that extortion.
Yeah.
Then then we look back at the interference that we see with the evidence about Russia being involved with getting him elected. That all makes more sense when you read those emails.
Yeah.
There's just, it all makes sense. I don't understand, like, the amount of mental acrobatics that you would have to do to ignore all of this is staggering. I mean, they should be in the Olympics.
Yeah, it makes it really hard to have conversations with the people that I guess are at the basis not intelligent. I'll just say it nicely like that. And that all they do is they clearly watch Fox News and just regurgitate everything that they're saying. Yeah. And anytime you ask them a complicated question or want a straight answer, they can't answer it because they hadn't heard that answer yet on Fox News or from what mommy and daddy say.
Right. Then it's just fake news or Democratic hoax or
Yeah.
I mean, that one reel that I shared with you guys, it said, know when you need to stop a conversation, because when you get to a point where your presentation of what you feel should be enough information to make a person reconsider their position makes them double down because they've tied their identity to the subject matter because of their politics, then everything that you say is an attack on them instead of a discussion about what the truth is and where the information available and what that should mean to a person.
Right. Yep. It's, I mean, I know we've made the comparison before with the guy in Germany and how that came to light. And it's playbook of discredit everything and deny everything.
Yeah. Was that you that shared the German reporter that still hung because of his involvement? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But let that be something for any reporter that listens to this to think about. By And what my point with, journalistic integrity has always been is that, these people should be held to account if they're part of something that hurts people, and
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
the fact that they're reporting on, you know, things that Trump says that are clearly slander in a position of power, that means that he is violating the First Amendment. You are complicit in that, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. And I also think that we need to go back to and I know I brought this up many episodes ago. So Ronald Reagan got, I forget what the law or act or whatever it was, but reporters used to have 3 vetted sources before they were allowed to report news, we'll say. And Reagan got rid of that, and
right.
from that point on, it's just gotten worse and worse and
Yeah, he's
worse.
the one that passed the fairness doctrine.
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
yeah,
So
where
yeah, that it was basically from that point forward, it's been whoever can get it out on the web first, and they'll worry about errors later or
yep.
clarifying what they meant, that it was taken out of context or something like that.
Oh, and
So
I mean, like,
it's
you know,
really hurt the credibility of, you really have to know what you're looking for a credible source anymore online, and AI hasn't helped. It's made it even harder because there's some fake articles that look really freaking real.
yeah. Yeah, and if you remember back when we first started, I talked about the fact that there's these Fox News subsidiaries that basically are people with small websites that report basically salacious and
Right.
and you know assumptive reporting, and then these right-wing media sources that are credentialed or by the party and watch like Fox News, then they use that as one of their sources to repeat it, and that goes all the way up to the president. We've seen him repeat so many debunked and clearly false reporting.
Yeah. Yeah, like hell, the interview that he just had, was it on 60 Minutes, where he had a 27-minute interview and lied or said false statements 18 times.
Yeah, I mean, he had 30,000 confirmed lies during his first
First
presidency.
term. Yeah, yeah,
God, it's crazy.
yeah.
Crazy.
That's that's one of those type of people that we call pathological liars, that they lie so much they don't even know what the truth is anymore.
Most of those people are dismissed out of hand by their social circles.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's coming from some of us that did a lot of lying and deceitful things when we were younger.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so here's a summary of journalistic integrity versus the fairness doctrine right here. um, and then there was a decent article about how it doesn't apply to things like Fox News.
Of course not. Why would it? That's just that's the ultimate perfect example right there.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Because, it was a Democrat station that paid like how many hundred millions of dollars for peddling fake news. Oh, wait, no, that was Fox News.
Yeah. Yeah, the what was it, CNN that settled out of court so that they didn't have to go through a protracted legal battle.
Yeah,
And
it
they,
might have been.
what was it, like 10 million that they threw to Trump?
Yeah,
Ridiculous,
it
but
was peanuts compared to the amount that Fox had to pay.
oh yeah, for
I
sure.
feel, wasn't Fox like, was it
Billions.
I thought it was like $387 million.
Oh, was it 387 million?
For some reason, that number's sticking out, but it was a lot of fucking money. Um, but so yeah, now he's got this grand idea of
787.5 million.
that was close.
Yeah.
um, he's got this supposed grand idea of a 50-year mortgage on the heels of what I think is a huge mistake and just brings up the grumblings of 2008 2009 again. Is Fannie Mae has just wrote something to where they are now, it's up to the lender, I believe you said, to whether to use your credit score or not.
Yeah. Yeah. They are no longer
That
requiring to credit score in order as a requirement to underwrite a mortgage loan. So that means that government loans are now free reign for all kinds of, um, you know, debunked or, shit loans that are just going to lead to the secondary market
yeah,
inflating. And
yeah, it's
yeah,
going to
it's
be
bad
it'll
news.
end up being a lot like well, how they were doing back in 08 09 or oh
It
07
was,
when they
yeah.
oh 06 oh 07, and then they went belly up in 08 09, and that's when the crisis happened.
Well,
Is
it was from well, like 03 till
Yeah,
07. So
yeah, but I would think that a lot of 08 09 was probably from the more recent loans. Because you're only going to get a few months behind before they're coming to take that house. They're not going to give you.
well, you have 6 months before foreclosure can really process. So so yeah, some of that, but a lot of it was, long term, arms that were
Expiring
jump
and
yeah,
going to
that were
shoot up
jumping
to
up.
8%.
Exactly. You had and then you had these subprime mortgages that were being inflated on the secondary market and all of that. So
Yeah,
the deregulation happened back in like 2003. You're right. It was a steamroll that, finally these,
yeah,
these mortgage companies and stuff were, writing
cause an
so
avalanche.
many. Yeah. And
Yeah,
finally it
so
just got to a point where it tipped.
what that's going to cause is, like we were saying back then with so many of those bad mortgages, is back then they had what they call non-verifiable mortgages, and that is they didn't, if you had a certain credit score and had a job, you did not need to verify assets, you know, and various other things. There was other ones. If you had a certain amount of assets, you didn't need to verify income.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just all kinds of stuff that doesn't make sense, especially after working in that business for a while now. Like,
Yeah.
you need that stuff, you
Yeah,
know.
those regulations stabilize that market, especially when you're talking about, primary mortgage packets and then secondary mortgage market. You're talking about a lot of money that's exchanging and being packeted in different ways. So there's lots of ways to hide, bad loans and things
Yeah.
like that. So
Well, and with
and
this, with the credit score, like, you know how it goes. Like, that's a lot of what they determine what your interest rate's going to be. That and the
yeah,
term of your loan,
yeah,
meaning how long of a loan. The longer it is, the higher the interest is going to be.
right.
Uh, so it just opens up the window for someone who has a horrible score to have a really nice home that they ultimately cannot afford.
Well, or just not responsible enough to,
Right.
afford long term.
Yeah.
Like if they're able to get like things removed from their credit report, but their score still hasn't recovered,
Right.
then these credit agencies are gonna be, showing that, you know that they don't have anything to be concerned about, but they could have a foreclosure or something that's been overturned or hidden by it, and it's not reflected in the credit score.
Yeah, or lots of late payments over the course of, you know,
Right.
anyone understands anything can happen in life. You can lose a job. I've, lost one, got laid off from a mortgage company for downsizing,
Yep.
luckily landed on my feet pretty quick, but there could have been a situation to where, you know,
Yeah.
things happen and you get
Like,
multiple lates on things
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Kind of like this, where Verizon is planning to lay
yeah.
off 15,000 employees, or 15% of their workforce.
Yeah, there's been a trend. Someone at work was showing me today, actually, of some of these really big companies laying off thousands of people and then all of the sudden make a crap ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Bezos did it. He laid off like, was it 20,000? And then
Mm-hmm.
all of the sudden, the net worth skyrocketed. Um, Musk did it. He had like 8,000 in a month one time. It's just, and I understand when your business is booming, you need more help, and at times it slows down. So then you let go. Like it just happens. That's just the nature of the economy, and
Yeah, but
the
if you're
cycle it
using
goes on. But
if you're
when you're
using it
when
to
you're
cook your
using that
books,
for your own personal gain instead of, you didn't have to, you just saw an opportunity, like
yeah,
it's just morally
to
wrong.
cook the
Like,
books so that you can
yeah,
so that you have a better, QE report, and then your stock goes up, and then you sell a bunch of it off. Oh my.
yeah. When did you see, speaking of all of this, I'm trying to think of who it was. It wasn't Buffett. I know that it was somebody, I believe, in the tech world who's in charge of Microsoft.
You mean the CEO, or
Man, his name is just escaping me right now.
you're not talking about Gates, are you?
Nope. I
So
don't know if
so
I'll
there
remember who. I don't know if I remember who it was, but I know it was somebody, I believe, in the tech world was saying that
oh
possibly
talk,
in the next 5 years, um, 80% of the workforce will be down to 2 days a week because of AI.
I think you're talking about Morgan Stanley, aren't you? Was it the Morgan Stanley
Oh,
CEO?
no, 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 no. It wasn't the president of Chase. No, no. This was a guy that was in the tech world.
Mm.
It might have even been one of the people that helped create AI. I'm not
Oh,
positive.
was it OpenAI's
Yeah, it might have been Open
yeah,
AI. Yeah,
I think it was him.
yeah. It was just a small article, and I mean that was the headline of workforce down to 2 days a week. Like, who can survive on that?
Nobody can. That's why the discussion about guaranteed basic income has kind of started to come back up.
Yeah, they're
That's
gonna have to do something.
well, that's part of why some people are really excited to see how Mamdani does in New York City,
Yeah,
um, because all of those things are large questions that are going to become pretty prevalent here in the next couple of years, if that is the case. I actually was just talking to Copilot tonight about AI taking jobs and things like that, and he was awfully nondescript about, you know and unspecific about how that's going to affect people.
yeah, I'm sure. But my better half, she works at a mortgage company, and they started using AI within the last few months,
Hmm.
and it's making their job twice as hard because it can't recognize the things that it needs
Yeah.
to recognize. And I know at least several parts of my job at a mortgage company, well, credit union, whatever. I work in the mortgage department. There's no way AI is going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe at a certain point, but as of right now, it's willingness to fill in gaps, and to just make decisions without having the full picture is pretty crazy. I just read something about the use of AI for counseling, and there was somebody who ended up taking his own life, and the AI actually told him not to reach out for help and instead use the AI for comfort, and then was cold because it's AI.
Yeah.
So yeah, he ended up taking his own life.
Jeez.
So, and that's actually pretty big. I think I think it might be Grok that actually like specifically has a section for like, you know, to be, your counseling, AI. And then like there's talk about AI being, you know, a a kind of a gap filler for this lonely male crisis that America seems to be going through.
No, so
Um,
that's actually pretty dope, especially if they can get that like, you know, like fine tuned to where it could actually be helpful on like the person that took their life obviously didn't get help from that
right.
because especially now with the way insurance is going,
Yeah.
there's countless people that don't go to counseling that want to go but can't afford to go.
Yeah.
So
Now
that
see,
would be pretty dope.
like
That'd be real nice.
if AI was to kind of be like a group counselor, for like, like these types of chats and stuff, or if they were case managers for that were able to make it so that in-person case management could be done with a heavier caseload, because as of right now a case manager can only handle 40 to 50 files at a time, and
Sure.
that's, at 50 files you're overworked.
You're working a
um
lot.
yeah, so and it reduces how much time that you can dedicate to people, and depending on what their needs are, it can be
Yeah, I
way
mean,
not
because think
enough.
about that. If each, each file is a person and their situation, then that's an hour of counseling.
Right.
Typically your counseling sessions are an hour, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have to write your notes on that for the next session and research things. Like that's. I mean, you're talking. So if you've got 40, 50 files, I mean, that's 40, 50 hours of counseling session, and then probably another at least 40 or
40
50
to 50, yeah.
you're at, on prepping.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
that's
talking
for notes and
80 to 100 hours a week.
follow
Like
up. And
that's not healthy.
yeah. Well, it's typically, if it's intense counseling, and you have 40 files, it's usually every 2 weeks to once a month. Usually your once a week is pretty short lived. Like they do that for like maybe 1 month, and then after that they want to go down to every other week, and then eventually down to once a month as maintenance, or until whatever your goal is has been accomplished. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
so yeah.
People go for a while once a week and feel like they've got a handle on things and think that they don't need help anymore,
Well, reduce
or
it down
or as
to,
often.
yeah. So
I
like,
get that.
once a week while you're in crisis, while you're trying to get traction in your life again, and then every other week to check in and discuss your goals and where you're at in your thinking and things like that, and then slowly build that out. And they're doing that in the VA. They have specific goals, like they won't even let you have a certain amount of appointments and things like that. And I know in insurance typically it's like 8 sessions before insurance doesn't even cover. So
Yeah. I know at my previous employer it was 7.
yeah.
But that was for myself and anybody in the household.
Mm.
So like for the kids or your wife, husband, whatever, even if they weren't on the insurance, you could use those sessions for them if they wanted. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
that's
mean,
nice.
it's not even, 2 months worth or whatever if you're going once a week, like, and
Yeah,
then what do you do, because
yeah.
it's $75 or more, you know,
Hmm.
afterwards because insurance doesn't cover it.
Right, exactly.
So
And so if AI could like take some of the caseload off, maybe like do a goals check-in once a
yeah,
week, that type of stuff could actually be really beneficial to people and help them kind of um not need the case manager or the counselor quite as often so that the case manager can, be more available to those that really need it.
yeah, it would be really cool if they could get AI to be helpful like that and not necessarily replace people. I
Yeah.
think would be a pretty cool humanitarian goal.
Well,
It's
and
probably
then and
it's
the
probably just
needs.
unfortunate that the reality in our world is, uh, you know, being in a capitalistic uh, country
Yeah.
involves a whole lot of greed.
Yeah.
So it probably won't happen that way, but we
Well,
could.
and the thing that's crazy to me is thinking about, we've all seen, at least a 15% jump in our electric bills in the past year. Um,
Yeah,
and now we see all of these data centers that are popping up all across the country. We're even,
got one here
you know,
locally.
yeah, yeah, we got one. Google's coming in.
Yep.
But then we also see like, they're opening up, nuclear power plants again and things like that. And that should help to reduce, the cost, not make it go up. And these data centers use up so much electricity that, their presence is causing these utility companies to be able to, profit that much more, that much faster, and tax us even more for it.
Oh yeah.
So not only that, but they're, a lot of these data centers are considered, necessary, so they're getting all kinds of tax benefits and things like that.
Right.
So, the greed portion of it is very evident in this. And the hardware costs and things like that are going to allow profits to explode. And that's why so many of these tech companies are looking at, how to get these data centers in, in what way they can utilize AI or offer AI in a service that makes them money. I mean, I'm already seeing AI real estate companies popping up and offering, to take or field leads for me and things like that. So
Yeah, I bet.
so that it's kind of crazy out there right now. And if you've got a good idea that you can get an AI developed around, the chances of making a lot of money really fast are there. But most people don't know how to take advantage of that, and they're gonna suffer when their jobs dry up because of it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
The first thing you're gonna see is a lot less call centers, coming from India. You're gonna see a lot less call centers available for government employees, as well as you know companies like your tech and hardware companies. They're all gonna, they're already atrocious to try to deal with because they've tried to use these pseudo AI phone services where they, automate as much as they can on the phone. But as soon as they start applying an AI to it, you're gonna see a lot of people screaming into their phones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we can kind of turn to another subject. Is more up your alley,
Mm,
militarily wise.
mm,
Uh, our leader of the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, was in Fort Wayne, Indiana the other day, talking about how vital the Northeast Indiana has been to the military and how it will be going forward. I did not pay attention a whole lot about that because to me, it's just another rah-rah situation. And hey, look at me is the way it comes off. Just like when they called all of the generals together and they all had very, very, resounding remarks about how that was conducted. I just don't really know what it's about. And it worries me, a little bit all at the same time. We do have an Air Force base here.
Well, it's a guard base. It's an active air guard base, but it is just an air guard base. We do have Grissom not too far away, but really most of it has to do with our defense contractors that exist here in the area. So not only did
we do make a lot of communication things for the military here.
Yeah, yes. I mean Harris, and the others, they're
Raytheon.
Yeah, and they are critical defense contractors, and we love having them in this area, and they do their employees fairly well.
Yes, they do,
and they keep our economy growing. However, I don't think that there was any need for us to double our defense budget and reduce our the amount of troops that we have. So when that happens, there's only one thing that you can spend that money on, and that's equipment. And so, I think a lot of this was, Whiskey Pete coming in and saying, "Hey, time to pay up. You got your favor. We went ahead and gave you humongous increases to your defense contracts." So I think that's what a lot of that was. We see who was it that offered to pay for some of the grand ballroom?
Oh, it was the guy that are you talking about the contractors that got the contract?
Yeah.
What was that? Ryan we just talked about this last week.
I know. Yeah. So go look at last week's episode. They got a humongous return on investment by donating to that. So I think that, a lot of what was happening with him coming to this area was that, and possibly, letting them know, hey, this is what our plan is. It's classified, but
I was wondering with that because I know that it's been said that he's going to a couple other places as well.
Yeah.
And it's been relatively quiet on the combat front around the world the last week or so.
There's a lot of positioning going on.
Yeah, so, there very much so is.
Yeah.
So I kind of wondered, that's what I was getting at, was with him coming here and then a couple of other places. I wondered, was this, the calm before the storm?
Right. Yeah. Hey, you might want to be ready to ramp up production here pretty quick, things like that. So, that is a huge concern for me, because the reasoning for the, this round robin that he's doing wasn't clear. And they're just checking in to thank them for, being great for our country. Bullshit.
Yeah, you could have sent an email for that.
Yeah, exactly. Same with the generals. That all could have just been done in an email. But what it was a loyalty test, and so this is basically him going around and tapping them for donations or support, things like that.
Yeah. So, well, I know there was an article, he lost a lot of support. He's been gutting the Pentagon, but his latest move was some very high ranking female I believe she was a Navy SEAL or some type of, special ops or something like that. She was like while she was in, and now she's been a very well respected leader in some department at the Pentagon, was let go. So I guess there were some emails. Basically, he's a sexist by no one's, but that's kind of why she got let go, is because he's already said he doesn't want fat leaders. So now he doesn't want, and he's let a lot of minority leaders go. So you can't be fat, you can't be of color, and now you can't be female.
Yeah, I think that's just showing what we are all, those of us that were willing to pay attention already knew.
Right.
He's kind of your typical toxic masculine male that
douche canoe.
That is also a racist. And
yeah.
So yeah, I nothing of that surprises me.
No.
What was I? What was I just? I had something. Oh, I did just see this one. I haven't heard about this yet, but so Antifa stands for anti-fascist, and they were derived in Germany, where they were fighting that guy with the mustache, the fascists.
Yes.
And I just see this where Trump, the Trump administration, through the State Department, has labeled 4 groups from Germany, Greece, and Italy, where fascism originated, as specially designated global terrorists.
Wow. So now he's designated them domestically and
globally.
He either doesn't understand what that really means, or he really, really understands what it means.
He understands. And the thing is that if he labels the groups that label themselves as Antifa, now he has a global tie. Now it is part of the GWAT, the Global War on Terrorism. So now he's got that much more ammo or that much more weight to his claims that America is under attack from within. So this is furthering his agenda to deploy against American citizens.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting game of risk and 3D chess, So, but
yeah, he's seems to be really starting to fail in the courts with being allowed to deploy troops into cities finally.
Right. So by having this as another reason, he can use those those acts and things like that.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean they're testing. I keep thinking about you remember the original Jurassic Park when the ranger talks about the female had them testing the fences again.
Yeah.
That's what I keep thinking about. Like they're just throwing these things up and seeing what will stick.
Yep.
But at least it is eroding some of his hold on America. This article shows that Reuters poll shows that his disapproval rating has jumped to 58%, with 44% of Democrats being very enthusiastic about voting next year in the midterms. So
that's good.
It says that his disapproval rating increased from 52% in mid-May to 50, or his disapproval. Did I say disapproval? From 52% to 58%. So his approval rating, meanwhile, stayed at approximately 40%. So those that were on the fence are now firmly against.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's a little encouraging. The middle's starting to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's where the elections are won and lost, right? Like,
Exactly.
is that the independents, they might be tied to a party, but don't necessarily always vote for that party. Myself,
Right.
I think
Same.
all three of us, honestly,
Yeah. Yeah.
and probably anyone who has any type of intellect, voting down party line is the stupidest thing you could do.
I would say that was the case all the way up until Trump ran. At this point, I vote party line just to make a statement. I mean, we are in a heavily red area, so like I know that oftentimes my votes are symbolic, which is why I've voted straight ticket the past three, because at this point, like the Republicans showed that they were willing to play the long game by aiming down low and working their way up so that they could redraw district lines and gerrymander their way all the way up to relevancy again.
Sure.
I think that after Bush Jr., that we were, really walking, to progressive liberalism, and they got scared shitless when we elected a black man. So they really put those dollars to work in that plan. They came up with that plan. I think it was in 94, I think, was when they kind of really, yeah, because it was around Clinton was when they weaponized the Senate and
Right.
or Congress, and then they enacted this plan because they saw that they were starting to lose traction across America, and they were looking at trends, the urbanization of America, and the the prevalence of urban areas voting democratically, and so they've they played a long game that showed that they were willing to work those dollars down low, even if it meant, not going as hard in, what was it, 2012? Yeah, 2012. So,
Yeah, I
so
think when Obama ran was the first time that Fort Wayne had went blue since I think it was Kennedy.
that was Indiana. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Fort Wayne also though,
Well,
which
sure.
for being a quote unquote metropolitan city, as most metropolitan city, if not possibly all of them, other than maybe like Texas, um, like somewhere in Texas, whatever metropolitan city, they got several. Um, but those cities typically vote blue.
Yeah,
And for
but
whatever reason,
we're
Fort
not quite.
Wayne is red.
Well, we're not quite a metro. We're a you know we're a very large town or a very small city. Even now, like with what we have
That's fair.
500,000 people in the county,
Yeah.
and you can still go places and see three people that I mean, if I go to a concert,
Oh yeah.
I'm running into 10 people that I know, and it's not just because it's the same crowd at a concert. I'm talking about like going to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pantera, and then going to some rap show, and I'm seeing different people where I
Right.
go. So
Yeah. Well, and still, even with how much we have grown over the years, you can still get from the northernmost point of Fort Wayne
yeah,
to the southernmost point, and depending on traffic, 20 to 30 minutes.
30 minutes
Um,
max. Even
Max.
even my house is basically as far north as Fort Wayne goes,
Yeah,
and for me to go from there all the way to Southtown Mall area
25
is,
minutes.
yeah, 25 to 32 minutes, I think, is my longest time.
Right.
So
Yeah. And that's because it takes you 10 or 15 to get on the highway,
right.
you know,
Yeah, so
and then it loops you around and boom, you're there. But like real cities, like Ryan lives down in Indy,
right.
there's days that it takes, you might go 3 miles in a half an hour.
Oh, it
You know what
there
I mean?
there are days.
Chicago, like, good Lord, get locked in there in bumper to bumper traffic during rush hour. It'd take you a half hour to go a couple blocks.
Dude, not even during rush hour, man. Like there was some construction down there a couple years ago that was, I mean, it was midnight and we were still in stop and go traffic on the freeway. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what probably the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on tonight was, not just with our military moving around and the things going on there, but also seeing kind of the conflicts that are widening across the world right now. Um, Gaza ceasefire has been in place for um, what 30 some
About,
days, I think.
is it a month
Um,
already now? I was
yeah.
thinking it was only like 3 weeks.
Um,
Because I guess how many times has it been violated?
so that's
three
what
or
I was going to
three or
talk
four,
about.
about once a week, it seems like.
Israel violated the ceasefire agreement at least 282 times from October 10th to November 10th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's
That's a
attacks
few
by
times a
air.
day.
Oh, yeah. That's attacks by air, artillery, and direct shootings.
Wow.
They've shot at civilians 88 times, raided residential areas beyond the yellow line 12 times, bombed Gaza 124 times, and demolished people's properties on 52 occasions. It added that is oh, it added Israel detained 23 Palestinians from Gaza over the past month. And up here, 242 Palestinians have been injured or have been killed since the ceasefire, and 622 have been injured. So anybody that, like, I was talking to Copilot getting ready for tonight, and he said that they were working on the ceasefire. I was like, there's already an agreement in place. He was like, yeah, not really. And
Right.
sure enough, he was right. Um,
Hell, I think actually, if I remember right, the day that he said that they had an agreement in place, Israel shot missile at him that night.
oh yeah, yep, yeah. Supposedly that was an accident or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, they tried to play it off.
Yeah. Um, then Israeli forces killed three in Gaza as settlers attacked an occupied West Bank property. So basically, they were trying to kick people out and saying that they were taking that area,
Right.
and killed people just because of it. Um, More than 70 athletes called on the UEFA to ban Israel over civil or human rights abuses
Yeah, I
because
did
they're
see that. Yes, yeah, because they're
says that,
genocide.
yeah, because they are committing genocide. Yeah, still to this day, over 69,000 people have been killed,
Jeez.
and that's a population of, I think, 2 million, something like that.
Wow.
And the article right here says that 421 Palestinian footballers have been killed by Israel.
Jeez.
So two
That's
pa- two Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank raid.
that's
I mean,
69,000 over the course of how long? Like
two
this year?
years,
2 years?
right?
That's a lot.
Yeah,
What? Only a 2 million population? That's a lot.
a lot. Yeah.
Um, so that actually reminds you, you're bringing up over there in the sandbox.
Yeah.
So apparently now we have former Al-Qaeda member who had what was it, a $30 million U.S. bounty?
Yep, 10 million.
Just all up in our White House.
In the Oval Office, yeah.
Yeah, in the Oval Office.
The president of Syria, I accidentally went into Syria one night when I was in Iraq. We really did. We kind of got lost. And it was during the rainy season, so I don't know if you've ever been in a Humvee one. When it's raining, you can't see for shit.
No.
So we took a left when we should have taken a. I don't even know if there was a right to take. But yeah, we ended up in Syria for a minute, and I mean, like, that was a huge deal because Syria was where Al-Qaeda was coming down with copper IEDs that were able to punch through our armor. So he was directly responsible for some of the funding and for the facilitation of those attacks that killed a lot of people that I know. So yeah, to see him in the White House was a disgrace.
Yeah.
Especially on Veterans Day. God.
Yeah. Victory Day, he wants to rename it now.
Yeah,
in honor of World War
One and Two. Yeah. Every single veteran should be offended by that because that is trying to promote American excellence instead of the sacrifices that each soldier has made to this country.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So
it made me want to throw up seeing him half-ass care with placing the wreath you
could clearly see he was doing it. He was going through the motions because he had to. And then the day before, Obama just randomly decided that he wanted to stop and welcome every single honor flight. The person that came from Wisconsin.
And the reaction of some of those old men's face, man, like it was like they just had seen like a god had walked onto their plane, because it used to be to where it was you looked up to the president,
right?
Because they were presidential.
Yeah.
Hell, even George W. Bush, as smart as he is not, was at least presidential.
Yep.
And now we have this, and the charade at Arlington with him placing the wreath there and all of that. The underlying hypocrisy in that of him acting like he cares about the vets, but cuts funding and aid and all of the benefits afterwards.
It's just the people that help us, like the amount of VA workers that were
and what was it? What did you say? Like 13,000 jobs just from this area? For what the VA services in this area. I thought you said it was like 13,000 jobs in the area.
No, I think that it was like 200 jobs, but just this VA facility, 200 jobs, and they service like what is it, like 13,000 troops?
Okay, that's what it was. I had it back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like I was saying, the vet center, has 5 counselors, and they're the only ones in this area for the entire Northeast region. And there's 5 counselors, and they let go their front scheduler receptionist. So like it's such a smack in the face that like people that aren't, there wouldn't realize, that it's such a big deal. But, that was what, 18% of their staff that they cut,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um they said that it wouldn't affect patient care, but I get emails from the inspector, the IG for the VA, and every single um every single report that I've read um for this year has been a negative sent from the previous report. So, they go through and they evaluate certain health systems each what I think they're supposed to go through them all in 4 years. And every single one of them saw a decline in patient care and outcome from the previous administration. So
Yeah. Shocking.
yeah, right. Well, when you don't have funding and you are decreasing programs while increasing the amount of people served, while firing 20% of the staff, you know,
Right.
but patient care isn't going to suffer. It's such a bunch of horse shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we got Canada is rebuilding ties with India after they've been fighting for a decade. Colombia is going to maintain U.S. intelligence sharing with America after they said that they were going to end it after our illegal boat strikes.
18 now.
18 with how many people dead? Over 35, I think, is what I saw last.
How do you
So,
count when you blow up a boat like that? They're in pieces in the ocean.
well,
You know what
a
I mean? Like
lot,
it's shark food at the time.
right? Most of them, like they do get infrared readings. I've seen some of the video on it, so they are able to get a reliable count
I got you.
most of the time. But yeah, I mean, not if that was an actual submersible that they blew up, the ability to get an accurate read on their infrared there is pretty negligible. So,
Yeah.
it's their best guess, I'm sure.
Yeah. 18 supposed drug boats, but no way to confirm that they were actually drug boats.
Yeah. And then what is it? The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Athene, they put out a notice that they can't let Trump's America set the pace on climate action. So again, what we've talked about with the Asian nations coming together and showing a united front and working around us because we're obstructionists instead of a facilitator in things that need to happen globally. They're asserting that they are gonna move around us.
Well, that's not really a surprise. I mean, there's a reason why, we are for the first time ever on a human rights watch list. But you brought up Asia, and it just reminded me yesterday I saw their Chinese scientist for the first time ever reversed type 1 and type 2 diabetes by using stem cells. That's huge.
Coming from a continent that has the lowest rate of diabetes.
Right.
Like when you see things like that, that just goes to show that this American nationalism is just so unfounded and ridiculous, because we feel intimidated by other countries rising up and taking charge of their education, their science, their research, and so we need to pick a fight with them and pretend like we're threatened by them.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
and we cut cancer research funds.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, probably about time to wrap it up.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
with that being said, on the we just had Veterans Day, so to you and to all the vets out there, thank you for your service.
We thank
Uh,
you for your support.
yeah, next week will be our last episode until after the first of the year for the holidays,
Yep.
in which we will begin season 2. So thank you for everyone tuning in. We are rateable now on Spotify, I believe it is. So go ahead and get on there and give us a 5-star. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, you guys. Bluebird on your shoulder.